You're listening to the Third Degree Podcast. And now, here are your hosts, Mandy Petrie and Brian J. Hatcher.
Greetings, friends, and welcome to the Third Degree Podcast. I'm Brian Hatcher, and with me, Mandy Petrie.
Hello, Brian.
So, let me start out by asking you, how are your October resolutions going?
Pretty good so far. I really hadn't thought about my October resolutions. I went to a Highlander festival. That's always fun, the caber tosses and everything.
Oh, yes. My October resolutions have been going pretty good so far. For everyone who's wondering, October resolutions, what are you talking about? And the answer to that is New Year's resolutions are not it. October resolutions, that's the cheat code.
Which is New Year's, so.
Yeah, that's the cheat code. And I'm going to tell you why you should do October resolutions instead of New Year's resolutions. Besides the fact that most people by the middle of January have gotten rid of their New Year's resolutions. They've already fallen off the wagon. October resolutions are actually easier to keep, and there are a bunch of reasons for it. When you do New Year's resolutions, everybody has this idea that you have an entire year. So usually when people break their resolutions in January, there's this idea, well, I've got the entire year.
Right.
And I can get back, of course. We never do. But in October, you feel like this is the last quarter of the year. And so in a real sense, you feel like, okay, this is your last shot at getting something done this year. And so you feel more of the time crunch by doing it in October. It's not a matter of trying to figure out what habit you want to get started with. It's getting to a place where you've already built something. And by having 3 months, you're not as likely to drop off. October's a really good time to get started on that type of thing just because you feel the time crunch and the pressure is there a little bit more. It encourages you a little bit more. But also, besides the fact that, especially for us weirdos, October is a magical time of the year, regardless of how many years ago it's been, the fall is the time we remembered when we were young, when we started school, when we started college. It all starts in the fall. And so even though for some of us it may have been decades since we've been to school, there's still that part of you that remembers that fall is that time when things begin again. It's like the new start happens in the fall. And so it carries on.
October resolutions.
That's the route to go. I wanted to talk today, and you brought this up as well. This was something we were talking about off the air, and you thought this might be something good to bring to the podcast. We were talking about third places. And
Not the white ribbon, right? The bronze medal, third place.
Third places or third spaces. That term comes from a book called The Great Good Place, published in 1989 by Ray Olderberg. He put a name to this idea of third space or the third place. The first place is your home, where you live, keep your stuff, watch television, eat your dinner. And then there's a second place where you tend to spend more of your time, and that's your workplace. That's where you do your job and earn your money. And for a lot of people, first and second place is all you have. But he said there were some times in the past where people had what they called a third place, which was a place where you hung out, kind of like the town square. It's where you hung out with other people. It's where you were social. This could be like a bar or a library or like going to the gym or going to church.
Poker night, bridge club, shuffleboard.
Yeah, going to bowling alleys.
The clandestine clubs, the orders of Odd Fellows and things like that.
Yeah, the fraternal orders.
Fraternal orders.
Yeah, like the Eagles.
The Water Buffaloes, I don't know.
Freemasons or the Moose Clubs.
Yes.
You had those things that people kind of fell away from. And Robert Putnam later on wrote, in 2000, he put out a paper talking about how people had fallen away from civil duty and also from hanging out, very similar to this idea of the third place. And he turned that article into a book called Bowling Alone, The Collapse and Revival of American Community. There was this idea that there were places where people could go away from home, away from their workplace, where they had an idea of identity, where they had an idea of community, where you could associate with a whole lot of different types of people. And so basically, there are according to Oldenburg, there are several characteristics to what makes a good third place. The first one being that it's open and inviting. In other words, it's not like a secret society where you have
okay. All right.
it's open to everybody. Everyone
Okay.
has the opportunity to partake, and it's open and welcome to everyone. Secondly, you don't need an invite or an appointment, and you just come and go as you please, like the park or the public square. It's a place that's comfortable and informal. In other words, come as you are.
All right.
So it's not something you necessarily have to dress up for to do.
So then we're also eliminating country clubs and then maybe even some liturgical meeting places along those lines, because you may have to dress a certain way or something. You couldn't go to those. All right.
Right. And a lot of that, including, like we mentioned, open and inviting. What makes a good third place is that you can run into people you wouldn't normally run into.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Another characteristic is that you feel like you belong there. You're not an outsider. It's like you're a part of this. And also that it's convenient. It's close by. It's not an hour drive or 2 hour drive. It's close enough to visit often, ideally right in your own neighborhood, because it allows you to frequent it more often. It also allows you to mix in with other members of your community, and it's unpretentious. So it isn't all about snobbery or a caste system or upper class, lower class. Everyone's on the same level. So there's nothing fancy, nothing fragile. It's not something that's expensive, so that there's a reason why people would be kept out of it. And then there are regulars. There are people that when you go there, you recognize people because you've seen them there before. And often there's a host that greets people as they arrive. So there is like a master of ceremonies in some aspect, somebody who knows your name, as you might say. And then also conversation is like the main activity. That's mostly what you're there to do. So if you're going to the movies, you're basically sitting there to watch a movie.
Right.
But in a good third place, you're there to talk to other people.
Okay.
Talk to your friends, maybe even talk to strangers. And there's discussion, debate, and gossip. It's all part of that conversational mix. And laughter is frequent. It's like you're having fun with each other. The mood is lighthearted. It's playful, joking, and witty banter are encouraged. It's basically where you can be yourself, but it's also a place where you are exposed to different people, different groups. It's a great like mixing pot.
Yeah. And so it really feels like, in my mind, after all those descriptors, I feel dive bars and taverns. Those are what I'm picturing in my head, where people are going to be talking, because in the library, you got to be quiet. You can't talk to each other. You're there to read unless they're having something special, a mixer or something along those lines. I think that in my head, that's what best fits the description. It sounds like that is just a great community idea if we could have those regularly and often and everywhere.
So, well, let me ask you this. Is there some place for you that you think would qualify as a third place or third space for you?
I think you and I can both agree that the community theater has been one of those great third spaces for us. At times we are there. We do have a goal in mind and we do have obligations. I feel like third spaces lack obligation. That kind of gives the idea of like churches or clubs and things like that wouldn't make it an ideal third space, because you have an obligation to it. So I think for us, like community theater, after rehearsal or something, we're sitting around talking and we gossip and we talk about prior shows and everything and getting together. I've really enjoyed that. I think I had an aunt who was a member of the Red Hat Society. That's a women that get together and go out and do outings and things. They just, older women, you have to be over 50, and they get together and they wear red hats and they wear purple, and they just get together and they go do something together. They'll like get on a bus and go do something together. That's more of a group of people, not a space, but that kind of reminds me of that. So what about you? What do you feel?
I would include with that for you a couple of things. And one would be, of course, improv rehearsals, because obviously that's fun and play, and it's not like a town square situation. It's a little smaller version of it, but it is a part of it. And I'd also say the tabletop role-playing that we both do,
yes,
is a good type of a third space. Again, it's not necessarily like a full-blown third place unless you're playing a game at a game store, where I think game stores can be those third places.
Oh, yeah.
For me, I would say, and this is what got me thinking about third places to begin with, was for me, it is the Kanawha County Public Library.
Okay.
Now, I know you disqualified that as a third place because
I always think of libraries as being places where you have to be quiet because people are there to read.
Right.
But you have a different experience than I do because of all of your activities in it. And tell us about your amazing activities at the library.
The idea of the librarian sitting at the desk and shushing people.
Yes, with pearls and a lace color and glasses down her nose. And
yeah. The library, and I can only speak for the Kanawha County Public Library, but I suspect that a lot of libraries are this way now, is that they are more of a social center. Our library spent a few years and a bunch of money to renovate the whole thing. I hadn't been to the library in years. And I basically went there specifically because I had heard that they had meeting rooms and we needed one for something that we were doing.
Mm-hmm.
We were doing a session 0 for a game. And I thought it would be nice to be able to do that outside of everyone's home. So it's not like somebody has to clean their house and have to deal with bringing a bunch of people in. And so I reserved one of their conference rooms, which was gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
But I started to see a bunch of stuff at this library that I knew they had renovated, but I had no idea the extent that they had renovated. First of all, they have a coffee bar. You can go to the coffee bar and sit around and talk and drink coffee or tea or have a scone or a muffin, and you have that social aspect. And of course, you can hang out in conference rooms or study rooms and have conversations there or hang out. In the main library itself, there are chairs and desks and places to sit around. And very often, while I'm walking by, there's a couple people. They're not talking at the top of their lungs or anything like that, but they are having a conversation in the library. They also have what's known as the Idea Lab, and they have 3D printers. They have a Cricut cutter.
Yes.
They have a Glowforge laser cutter. They have a water cutter.
Oh, that's kind of scary.
Yeah. If you're wanting to carve metal, you can do that. They've got sewing machines, embroidery machines. They have recording booths. They've got a machine that allows you to copy VHS tapes onto disc if you've got old VHS tapes that you need to transcribe. But they've also, next to that room, they've got an Xbox with games that kids come in and play. And of course, they have computers that you can use either set up or you can borrow a laptop to use while you're there. And a lot of the conference rooms and study rooms have computers in them, so you can use them there. But there is a community, and there are people there frequently, and I happen to be one of those people now. And so I have been able to take advantage of that as a third place. For the most part, I'm not hanging out with other people there.
But you're one of the regulars here that you can...
Yeah, there are people who definitely recognize
it's open
me
and
there.
Inviting, and there are regulars.
Yeah.
And there's a host, a librarian.
Or in the case of the Idea Lab, there's someone who runs the Idea Lab who we work on projects together. And very often I'll spend an hour or an hour and a half working on something on the Glowforge, some woodworking project, or getting a 3D print done for a game that I'm working on. But for me, the public library has become a third place. And really, third places have become front of mind, especially recently, because of the horrors of 2020, 2021, parts of 2022 for some people, where third places really disappeared. And in a real sense, second places became first places and second places. And so you worked from home. And so it was like this one big amorphous glob.
Yes, you worked behind your computer. You talked to people on Teams behind your computer. You talked to your family on your phone. Everything was
on your computer.
Was on your computer behind your screen. All of your spaces, all of your places were right there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Except for those moments when it was time to record a podcast and you'd go to a parking lot.
Yeah, I went to a parking lot.
You had to go to a parking lot.
Yeah.
And so being able to split that first and second place was, for some people, a good thing. Unfortunately, I can think of one friend who didn't get that opportunity and is still working from home and probably will
for the remainder of his career. Sounds
very
like
likely, very likely. And,
seldom he gets to travel and go to another place a walk or something.
Well, he does get opportunities to, using the library, have meetings with other people, and he does travel a little bit. Friend of the show's Kevin Pauly, who works for the National Heart Association, and he does heart walks, and so he travels a little bit for that. But for the most part, he works from home, behind the computer, working from home, and so he doesn't really have that respite of getting away from home, doesn't have that demarcation, that separation. And for a lot of people, that was just horrible. And for me, I know those 270, I think it was 274 days that I worked from home.
I didn't count.
Oh, I did. I actually I tick marked it.
Oh my goodness, like you were in a cell?
I did, because I thought that would be funny. Of course, in March, it would be funny.
Dufresne.
Yeah. In March, it was funny. By the following January, not so much.
No.
Yeah, because it took up a lot of space on my damn board.
Time to get a new board. Just paint my whole wall whiteboard.
Yeah. One of the most joyous things ever for me was being able to take the eraser and wipe that whole thing down. I was so happy to be able to do that. But even though I was able to get that demarcation, there was still something definitely missing. And a lot of people, especially during COVID, began to realize, you know what? Third places are great, because even after the restrictions left and people were leaving the house, they were still not going out and doing stuff. They hadn't quite got there yet. So third places are now starting to develop again, hopefully. Even before COVID, third places were dying off, obviously, because the concept of the third place, when the first book came out in 1989, then the Bowling Alone book in 2001, and except for specifically people who read those books, they never really thought of this idea of a third place. But during
it was just always around.
Yeah, it was something that people were missing but didn't really have
taken for granted until it was.
Yeah, that was part of it. And I think people didn't really understand this concept. But COVID, as being the great equalizer and also made us very aware of a lot of things, we didn't really miss third places until we were like, we only had one place. And then, thinking going back to work would make things go back to normal. And yet there was just something missing. And it was just, again, the horribleness of COVID and the restrictions of it made what we were missing and not really having third places all that more obvious. And so I think that's why you're starting to see more of this movement of finding third places, and why I think people are starting to realize more and more just how important it is to have those moments where you can get away even from your home and have interactions with other people. And it really drove it home for me when I started going to the library more. After that one visit and then just stopping by and then making it something that I do once or twice a week at the very least.
Right.
Having those moments away, whether I'm working on a project or I'm sitting in a study room doing some kind of art or some kind of writing, or even if I'm just sitting in a chair somewhere reading a fiction book. Because that was something else that I hadn't realized. I've been an avid reader all of my life, but over the last decade or so, I would say 99% of the reading that I did was nonfiction. And I hadn't read a lot of fiction recently, and I think...
Because Joe Hill's new book is coming out. I've pre-ordered it. I'm just waiting for it to come in.
Well, there you go.
King Sora.
And being around fiction again, and now taking the time to grab fiction books and read them, I fell in love with reading again in a way that I had lost and hadn't realized that I had missed till I got it back. Being able to sit down and read a good story, which I haven't done in a long time, I hadn't realized just how much I enjoy doing that. And getting to do that again has been really eye-opening. But that is one of those things that a good third space or third place will do for you. It will open you up to remembering old experiences, but also new experiences. Because one of the main uses and purposes of a good third space is to bring you around people that you normally wouldn't be around. And you can learn from them as well. It's a mind-expanding experience. That's why I have made it a point to go to the library as often as I can when I have time to do so. It's why I've tried to get out, as the kids say, touch grass more. It's why I've started going to the improv classes with the group that you're a part of now. Just to get back into that and being able to play again. but other things as well, getting into role playing more and doing tabletop RPGs and, just basically spending more time with people. I would have told you. Yeah. The thing about it is I always joked around. I was very much introverted and wasn't a big fan of people.
You're just selective about the people you're interactive with.
Well, I think people should be. But after spending so much time where I couldn't interact with anybody except on a computer or on a phone, suddenly people weren't so bad. Some people were just not so bad. And being around more people, it seemed to be a good idea. And so I really started to do that. And I think going to the library and spending more time there has opened up a lot more stuff for me. And it's been very helpful. It's been very healthy. And I feel it is, for me, a really good change.
So we're recommending to our listeners to get out to your third spaces.
Find you a third space, definitely. And
touch some grass.
So that's where we will end it today. So for Mandy Petrie, this is Brian Hatcher, reminding you all that life is lived not by big changes, but by small steps, and that you should take life 1 degree at a time. See you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Third Degree Podcast. Please remember, the opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the hosts and do not necessarily reflect the views of any affiliated organizations. The content provided is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Any advice shared during the show should not be considered medical advice. Always consult a qualified healthcare professional for medical concerns or before making any health-related decisions. The Third Degree Podcast is a Hanging J production.